Munchkins and viewers alike, it's me Munchie and welcome to the, I think it's a 1-year anniversary from the hamster update that I did last year, but I haven't updated you guys about the rescue in forever. So I have a list in front of me, and that's why we're at the computer table today, is because I get to show you who's been adopted, who's still here, and then the ex-hamsters who are no longer with us. These are all hamsters that I have introduced to the channel, whether it be for short, brief moments and or just long chapters of their introduction stories. These are well-known hamsters here, and so I just want to get it all out of the way. I may talk about them in depth later, but hopefully this answers a lot of people's questions if you guys are not following Instagram, where I post their updates all the time. Real-time updates about what's going on, what's happening. You'll all find it on Instagram. I know not many people have Instagram, but if you just go on to your desktop and type in instagram.com/munchies place for homeless pets, you can see any updates whether or not you are logged in. Anyways, let's dive into who's been adopted and who is still here. I tried doing this in chronological order, I think. I know that I just edited some of it and then I realized, oh, I probably actually looked up all of their adoption forms and or looked up the dates of which I adopted them or intook them and things like that. And so I might have messed it up, so they may or may not be in order. This is also following with last time's update. So if you saw that update, this is just going to kind of reflect what I talked about in that update, plus more. So Molly was adopted. Hallelujah. I think I adopted Molly back in January. Oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to make myself in editing software look that information up now. But I did adopt Molly, which I think was at the beginning of the year or around December, when I did have my big adoption event going on. And Molly was taken by a loving family and the mother was so excited. She was so thrilled. She actually came right after church and picked up Molly. It was such a nice interaction. Previously, we mentioned that Molly was one of the longest hamsters who have been with us, but there's another hamster that topples her record. And I believe Molly's record was either 6 or 7 months. It was 6, I believe. And then we had another hamster who toppled hers. And then we have our current hamster that's toppling her right now. So Molly was adopted. Ginger was finally adopted, and she was the other one that has been here forever. She had the 7-month, if I remember correctly, longest time a hamster was in our care. I was so happy, and Ginger's owner still provides us with updates, so I'm very thankful about that. But Ginger was one of the most personable. I had mentioned previously that Miss Frizzle was personable, and now Ginger, I believe maybe I did say it too, she was very personable. She had just this charisma about her, this temperament, this oh so adorableness to her that felt like you can connect, you can click with her, she understands you. She had a really good bond with us, and it stays true to this day in her new home. So I'm so happy she was adopted. Now the 10 hamster litter, I did talk about them. There's this big long list, and I'll go over that with the ExFoster updates. But yes, all of the 10 hamsters from the 10 hamster litter ended up getting adopted. So woo! They went by very quickly, and I think I did mention that in the 10 hamster litter update, because I believe at the time when I made the video, everybody was adopted. Yeah, I did say everybody was adopted. So technically I'm just repeating myself now. They all got adopted. Star is still with us. We've had her since November of 2018. It's been 10 months pretty much since she's been here, so it's almost been an entire year. Her 1-year anniversary comes up. She'll be at least 1.5 years old, if not older, because we just estimated how old we thought she was when she came to us, which was around 6 months. But yes, Star is still with us, and she is the longest time resident here. And that does not include any foster fails. It includes still able to be adopted animals. And she definitely got bigger, and she changed a lot too. She had a shorter coat before, but then it grew very long when she got older. And that part does kind of shine, but she's not satin herself. Next is Bonbon and Cloud have been adopted. Yay! So they both got adopted, with Bonbon taking forever to get adopted, which is so weird because she had one of the most docile personalities. An update to what we suspected: Bonbon might be pregnant when we got her, because she was being housed with Cloud at the time, and she was a pear shape. All of a sudden during Christmas time, when we got Bonbon, December 15th, all the way up to Christmas, she started losing a ton of weight. We thought she was going to be pregnant. She ended up not being pregnant because we took her into the vets. They did an x-ray. No, not x-ray. Ultrasound. There we go. That one. They did an ultrasound, and they looked at her below part, and they said to us she has post-pregnancy pregnancy symptoms where they believe she was previously pregnant, especially since her teats, her little teats, were swollen and now they have gone down, and the red mark that was on her stomach started to disappear, and they said that the bleeding, because we noticed that she was bleeding down there, which I thought that meant maybe a miscarriage or something horribly wrong with her, because I think we got her in December 28th just because it was Christmas time. We couldn't get her in the vets. That was ridiculous. You can't get a poor hammy to a vet on Christmas. But we took her in. They were saying all these, you know, confirm if you guys suspected, and if she did look, and I showed them photos of when we first got her, she looked massive, but there's no pups in her belly that see, and they believe that she was previously pregnant. So that means what I suspected was Bonbon and Cloud were not somebody's companion. These were retired breeding hamsters, because she did mention their ages very clearly, and they were both around the age to be retired. I know that for a fact. So we do believe Bonbon was previously pregnant before she came to us, and when she came to us, it was after she, hopefully, if that lady did have the pups, hopefully they were nursed and able to go off on their own, because if you separate the mom too soon from the pups, that can have consequences. So hopefully those pups, wherever they are now, are not going to be randomly sold as backyard breeders do on Craigslist. But I definitely afterwards looked in that area to see if there was any potentials of litters that were trying to be rehomed and they looked like her and Cloud's children, but I didn't see anything. But in that same area, I did happen to find some breeding posts of similar looking situations where I do believe that possibly it could have been the same person. But ever since then, I haven't seen this person. I haven't seen their name and or their phone number pop up, so I believe we are safe. But they have been rehomed, and Cloud has actually been rehomed to Miss Frizzle's owner. Miss Frizzle's owner actually got Cloud, so it's awesome because we get updates from Cloud as well. And we do get updates from Bonbon, because the last update we got from Bonbon was she was being held by the father, and it was the cutest thing ever. And oh my gosh, she was like so happy. You could see a big smile on her face and everything. Yeah, it made me so happy. You guys don't know my excitement when it comes to like finding these guys' homes and hearing about updates from them later down the road, where they're like, oh yeah, we still have the hamster. We wanted to update you. Here's some updates, because I do always ask people if I can have some updates from them. So that's really cool, and I'm happy and I'm excited. But the next one that got adopted was Babe. Remember Babe got returned to us? Babe got adopted for a second time, and he's with a loving owner now, and she was so sweet. We got an updated picture of him and everything with this new family, and I couldn't be happier. I did explain to them that he was previously returned, and that, you know, he is an older hamster, especially since we knew his birth date last year. I think it was, yeah, Babe should be coming up on his 2-year mark, I think. Yeah, so Babe's a senior. Yeah, I remember I rescued him last year, and at that time he was almost turning 1 year old from what the previous owner said, because he intentionally bred hamsters, and that's where Babe's situation came from. If you guys don't know where I'm going with this, Babe came from somebody who bred hamsters together and then gave them all up, and that's where he came from. But yes, Babe is a senior now. He is with a loving person. I should probably ask for an update on him to see how he's doing, but there's Babe's story. Now, Periwinkle, she is still with us. She came to us back in December. I thought it was November because I was lumping her and Star together, but no, Periwinkle is definitely, we got her in December of 2018. And mice, unfortunately, they do have a very short life expectancy. 2 years is supposed to be around the average. However, a lot of pet store feeder mice end up dying very soon, especially because they are massively produced. They are meant to be feeders, unfortunately, and that's what we suspect Periwinkle is. She is a fancy feeder mouse because her coloration is quite different. It is a beautiful, I like to call her like the purple mouse, even though she's not really purple. That's why I call her Periwinkle, but she has this gorgeous gray looking coat to her. But unfortunately, nobody really provided a suitable home for her, and I had several inquiries who wanted to stick her in with other mice, and I let them know she's a single mouse only. She shows aggression towards other mice, and a lot of people just did not understand that, but it is very possible for mice to suddenly turn on each other, even if providing the best care. And then somebody did want to house Periwinkle in a 10-gallon tank, and I denied them, and then they flat out showed me a lab lab report about how to keep mice and claimed this is their care and what, you know, mice should be housed in and what it should be based off of, and they know what they're doing, and they got insulted when we declined them, even though we provided information. And we like to make sure that people are aware that we're declining you, but we're willing to help you to get a better setup if you so choose to have a better setup. Lots of times people do unfortunately get offended. Next, Fergus Lea and Mariah got adopted. I mentioned them in the adoption train because originally I got Fergie for Periwinkle, and so Periwinkle, we ended up finding out, like I said, she was aggressive, so then I had to put Fergie with a pairing, and I called the PetSmart that I got her originally from, and it turns out, yes, they still had a few of her siblings there, so we ended up just having a trio of 3 sisters, which was Fergus, Lea, and Mariah, and surprisingly enough, they got adopted, and it was at the beginning of the year, which was so great, and the person who adopted them loved them so much. She was looking for a trio, and they went so quickly. Like, I was so surprised because mice take a very long time, especially pet mice, to find homes, because a lot of people inquiring were people wanting her to be a feeder. So I was very happy about Fergie, Mariah, and Selena, but another update. Unfortunately, we got them back, and I already posted up a video about that, but basically we have them back now. I think they are still under a year old. They are huge mice. They're much huger than Periwinkle, and there is, I forgot, there was a nice person who mentioned that there's 2 different types of mice. I think there's like British mice, and then there's a different type of mice, and some people have mixed their genes, so you might get some mice that are looking super huge, but that's because of this genetic trait that was mixed into whatever people were breeding, because they are huge little mice. Oh, I remember them so dearly. You can pick them up. They are still a little bit curious about you, but they're not scared. They're very inquisitive. They want to know more about who's at their enclosure. They like to go running on their 3 wheels they have in there. They're in a Preview 528 cage. They're living the life. I actually really liked them when we got them the first time, and I don't mind having them back here again, but we are getting pretty full right now, so trying to not fill up my rescue so much. So next we have Oscar. He was from the aggressive dwarf hamster video that I posted about. In that video, basically I tried to let people know, and I did it kind of poorly, I think, because I edited it terribly. I don't know why I do that. Sometimes I'm a great editor, I feel like, and sometimes I'm terrible. Oscar was deemed to be aggressive, and he was deemed to be non-cage aggressive. He was aggressive no matter what. I tried to make sense of it by letting you guys know that lately I've been noticing a lot of Petcos, a lot, because I've been talking to people and I know people in Petco, that they mention that the breeding mills tend to breed dwarf hamsters just like they do for bird breeders, where they keep aggressive, non-sellable birds and they breed them over and over again. So they have those really bad negative traits, and or they had traits in their bloodline. No matter what, they will go after you. Even if you take them out of their environment, they will still not settle down. It is not a cage aggression issue. However, if you have cage aggression issues, just changing their lifestyle can change their personality, and you can work with them. For these guys, they just couldn't. Oscar, unfortunately, and I think I mentioned it in that video too, maybe I didn't, Oscar the Grouch did pass away only 5 days after receiving him from the pet store in the adoption program that I got him from, because he was deemed too aggressive and he was returned multiple times. And unfortunately, I had discovered he looks kind of funny, he walks kind of funny, something's going on with him. He was suspected to be 8 months to possibly a year old, but who knows, he could have been even longer there. But he ended up passing away, but it looked like he passed away peacefully. And then Little Bean was finally adopted last month. We were so happy to receive this amazing news that a family fell in love with her. They knew she was an old senior. They didn't care. They wanted to adopt her because they had ties with the name Little Bean, and they loved her personality and how docile she was. So Little Bean finally found a home, and we had her since February of this year. And her coat, her umbrous looking undercoat, her dark undercoat, was just so beautiful. She was such a beautiful, personable hamster. We are so happy she was able to be adopted and finding a loving home. But unfortunately, there is some sad news to Little Bean that I will discuss about later in this video. But the next one is Suki and Sushi. Suki, unfortunately, went first. I knew that she was declining, and I put her up for adoption, I want to say, for a couple weeks, and then I noticed that she had a bump that was growing on her back right side. So I took her in to the vets, and they drew a sample from her, and they sent that to the lab. The lab came back, and it said everything was fine. So what they think was the test didn't get what they were trying to look for, and or that it was too small to actually pick up anything, and or it was benign. So they just ruled out right away that it was a benign, it was just possibly a small growth because she's getting older. But she started, Suki, to slow down very quickly. And unfortunately, with the increase in weather temperatures, I think that could have been possibly what pushed her over the edge, even though we tried to keep the household very cool. We got fans going, we got an air purifier in here, so we made sure that all the animals were comfortable. Unfortunately, she did pass away from what looks like old age. We found out from the vets why it looks like her arm or hand and her paw too, she walks on it funny. They actually diagnosed that as having been a past injury. They asked about if she had fallen previously, and I said, hey, this is the cage she came in and this is the enrichment she had. Most likely she ended up falling from her cage, and just knowing that, I forgot if she got the 2-tier or the 3-tier one, because you remember the 3-tier in Suki and Sushi's introduction video. That was a very high cage, and I made a comment that they could have fallen off. Yes, it has been confirmed that she was walking on her paw funny because of an old past injury, then most likely she fell and hurt herself. So that really irritated me, knowing that that happened. There's a life lesson for you guys. Hamsters don't need to be in the sky. Suki is a victim of it. But unfortunately, let's continue on. Sushi did pass away last month. Last month was a passing of, I want to say 3 or 4 hamsters, and it was the most horrible time I've ever had. August this year has been the worst month of 2019. Sushi, we all knew was coming. Sushi was bleeding from her bottom. We took her into the vets, and I was given 2 diagnoses. I was given, she might have pyometra, because usually pyometra you can see when their stomach starts to bulge, but it is a thing where they start bleeding just like how Zelda was bleeding. So they could go in and perform surgery. However, with her age, they said that if she's around 2 years old, she's already a senior, she's not very young anymore, it will pose a bigger risk bringing her into surgery because she might die in surgery because of her age and her condition. Then they said, or it could be a possible tumor. And so it's very hard to tell, especially on an ultrasound. I think they perform an ultrasound or x-ray, one of the other two. I always get those two confused. But what do they perform? I have so many hamsters and personal animals that go to the vets all the time. It's trying to remember who did what, but they said that it's very hard to see with this type of imaging what it could possibly be because they're right around the same area. So they gave her antibiotics, and at first the antibiotics were working and it was amazing, and then it came back and you saw her stomach expand when it would come back, but then all of a sudden the expanding went away and she was back to normal. And I really thought that, you know, she was gonna die, but turns out no. Every time this happens, she would go back to normal and then start kind of bleeding a little bit, expand, and then go back to normal. And I had talked to the vets and they told me I can bring her in and euthanize her because that would be the best option if she's in pain, or I can naturally let her pass on if she's not in pain. So I was watching for, I want to say 2 months. She was still very active till the end. I made it easy for her, so I took out everything except for what she was basically using and just letting her get around in there. But she was still jumping and climbing on things even though she was starting to get a hunchback and everything. I provided a bowl of water for her. When she passed, I knew it was coming. I didn't know which day though. That was the thing. She was always so active up until the very end, so she just ended up passing away. But it sucks that I only saved them, I think January or February when we had the big snowstorm. Right after that snowstorm, I went and saved them. But yeah, that's what ended up happening with them. Both of them are gone now. They are both buried in the pet cemetery I have in the woods, and they were loved. They were loved by me. It's upsetting that they never found homes, but at least they were in my care and at least I helped. So the next one was Jumbo. Jumbo was adopted. Now this, I just want to let you guys know, I have no updates on Jumbo. I have tried reaching out to the family via email, even though I believe it was a Craigslist email. I tried reaching out to them, and I reached out to them using the phone number I was given, and there has been absolutely no communication. So I don't want to be negative and say that I have a bad feeling, but I have a bad feeling that possibly maybe Jumbo did not work out and maybe they rehomed Jumbo. I'm terrified terrified. I don't know, it's just whenever somebody doesn't talk to me, I'm like, oh God, is it not working out? What happened? But they were kind of going back and forth in the adoption process of which hamster they wanted. And they showed an IKEA detox cage, and I was just so happy for this family. I was like, oh my gosh, look at this, they have an IKEA detox. I'm hoping that the person who adopted Jumbo is watching this. If you follow me and you adopted Jumbo for me, please give me updates. I'm just so worried about him. But the next one is Xena. I only had Xena for 8 days. I told you guys her awful story. I told you about her fighting with her other cage mate. I told you about her weight and her wounds and just something doesn't seem right with her. Xena, I discovered her doing what I saw little Missy do and all the hamsters that I see them not doing so well, like they start shutting down. She was a little bit cold. She wasn't completely cold, but she was a little bit cold. I was trying to warm her up. I made the room very warm because I didn't have a heating pad that I could hook up to and have her like rest on top of, but I tried to get a vet appointment, but it was too late, so I had to wait to call until morning time. I noticed that she had a very big, large lump underneath her chin, and I felt it, and it felt hard, and that did not feel like a wound. That felt like there's something there, something that's not supposed to be there. However, I did note when I first got Xena that she seemed like she was, I want to say breathing weird. She seemed like she was breathing kind of weird, but I think that was because of her weight at the time. I was really thinking that it could have been just a weight issue because she weighed so much. She was so heavy. She was the biggest little girl I've ever had, and she was living in a 10-gallon tank with another Syrian just as big as her. She was only given a 7-inch wired wheel, and so she probably was not able to run on it because of how big she was. So she probably just sat around. Unfortunately, when she did that evening have those symptoms and I made the room exceptionally warm for her, the next morning I go in there and she had passed away, but she did not pass away peacefully. There was blood coming from her nose or her mouth. And the thing I did too, the night of, I think I was up until like 1 or 2 making sure that she was still okay before I went to bed. And she seemed like she wasn't doing so well, but I tried. And I only had her for 8 days. I want to make a tribute video, and I still want to make tribute videos of all the ones that have passed in our care, especially since I have some personals that I recently lost too. That image, finding her like that, haunts me. But I really do hope that she knew I cared. Not to be depressing at the end, we do have at least 3 more and then the ExFoster updates for you guys. And the hamsters that are unfortunately no longer with us. And when I say no longer with us, I mean no longer with their adopters. They have since passed on and we've since been notified. The last 3 is Baloo, which he's still with us in our care, Scarlet, who just recently got adopted, and then Chomps, because Chomps is still here and still doing great. She's had a few inquiries since I posted up photos and video of her saying, hey, this is her story, but they are doing fine right now. ExFoster updates. Tully. We have no known updates on Tully, so I can't update you guys about her. The next one is Jupiter, who is now Tater Tots, who is now, oh gosh, I didn't even write it down either. And she's had so many name changes, but she's still being cared for by my loving friend who absolutely loves hamsters, so she is getting spoiled. Tater Tot, who's now forgot the name, is doing okay. So the next ones are Ginger's surviving children pretty much, and that is Runty, Kiko. She's still doing good. Her scare that we had in the update video seems to be completely fine now. She was the runt of the litter, and she did have what they suspected at the vets when she was having trouble walking. She was wobbly, she was not doing so well. They suspected that she had either a stroke or she's just underdeveloped, but because she's the runt and because we knew for a fact she was malnourished and maltreated, she probably had underdeveloped organs, but she's doing great now. So I'm so happy Kiko is doing very well. Snickers, who is now named Chomper, he's doing well too. Everything's fine. He was actually one of the largest ones. Originally it was Tootsie that was the large gal, but Snickers was the second or first largest, I forgot. He's doing exceptionally well. We still get updates from him. Crackle, who is now Possum, has such a loving family. They love him so much. They're always having him on their chest or underneath their neck. He's always snuggled up with them. He is such a pampered little boy, and I'm so happy the family is so in love with him. And then last is my Crackle. He is still doing okay. However, lately he's been sleeping a whole lot more, and and that does worry me. I am very worried because they should be, I think, a year old now. I think they're a year old now. Oh my gosh, it might be his year-old birthday. I need to go make sure that he's doing okay. Yes, he is doing fine right now, just sleeping a lot, but he is being monitored. So far, so good with him. Next is gonna be Joy. There's no updates from Joy, but I did talk about Joy in my adoption train last, so hopefully she's doing very well. Hershey, we did notify everybody in the adoption train she was getting adopted, and that we have an update on her because after a while we didn't hear anything back, and then they suddenly sent us an update with photos. Everything seems to be all right, and she's doing very well, and they couldn't be happier to have her. Then we have Jane, which is now Toffee. We still get updates from her. She was part of the 10 hamster litter along with Anna, who gives us regular updates, and we mentioned in the adoption train at that time, so that was technically the first mention of the 10 hamster litter. And then Aladdin, like we mentioned in the Oxbow video, we are no longer in contact of, so we don't know how he's doing, but we're crossing our fingers that he's such a handsome, gorgeous little boy. Dang it, maybe I should have held on to him. I had my instincts. I'm like, hold on to him. He's so precious. He's like the cutest. Unfortunately, no contact. And then we got Flynn, who turned into Finnegan, but we did get some updates from Flynn, and turns out he did end up passing away. So we found out Flynn passed away during one of our videos. We were not notified sooner of this, and we kind of wish we were, but we did learn, unfortunately, in one of the videos that he passed away. So that is unfortunate. So next, it's the ex-hamsters who are no longer with us. And these are hamsters that we probably previously received a bunch of updates from, and then now we have discovered that they ended up passing in the owner's care just because of age, complications, something going on. But Miss Frizzle has since passed away. She is no longer here, so for all of you out there who really loved when we introduced Miss Frizzle, she was pampered and loved so dearly. I believe the owner said to us that she had her for at least 7 or 8 months. I think it might have been 7 months, and then she ended up passing because she was already over a year old, so by the time she did pass, she might have actually been 2 years old. So that is a good long life she lived. Unfortunately, she lived most of it in bad care, but for the end of it, she lived her retirement life in bliss. So Pappy, unfortunately, has passed away. He is no longer with us. If you remember, he was part of the 6 hamster intake, and he was the father of all the other children that we took with him. Pappy did end up passing. He was such a handsome little boy with that cute little face looking at you. It was adorable. But he did pass. We did mention Tootsie and Goobers have passed in the Ginger's updated video, so I won't go further into that. Flynn, like I mentioned, did pass, and Jasmine, which turned into Winnie. And we actually visited back in March 1st. We saw Winnie, and Winnie was doing great and everything. She unfortunately has passed. So we don't know what happened to Winnie. We don't understand exactly what could have been the cause of it, if it's under development, if it's genetics. But what we're pushing for is we think because this was a 10 hamster surrender litter of 2 different pet store hamsters being pushed together, made babies, and then given away. It's just bad genetics. You do not, if you don't know what you're doing, do not play God. Do not try to breed animals that you know nothing about their genetics, their health history, their everything. No. She probably, unfortunately, might have passed away due to poor genetics, and so that's all we can say. It's just that the 10 hamster litter, Ginger's litter, none of them should have been bred by these people intentionally. That's why I support ethical breeders. So please, do not intentionally be breeding these guys, and if you accidentally have rescued a hamster that is pregnant, just be aware you're gonna have loss. It is probably inevitable. That's why I always send people to Strong Brew Hamstery, because they have a really good care article about pregnancy crash course. Please look that up. I have sent it to people with accidental litters before. It really does help when you know what you're doing. And the last one, which we did mention, got adopted last month. Yes, Little Bean, which was a lot of people's favorite hamster. She did end up passing away, and she passed away thankfully in the loving arms of her family, because what happened was she was doing fine. 2 weeks into them having her, she starts breathing funny. She's not able to open up her eyes. She's being a little weird, so they took her to a vet. Even though they've had her for 2 weeks, took her to a vet, guys. And they did chest x-rays where they discovered that she had a large tumor on her chest that unfortunately, due to her age and due to how big it was, which was so incredible, I could not believe hearing, because we did body checks and everything. We did not feel anything. It was probably in the chest cavity itself. She had a big problem, and they did the humane thing and they euthanized her because you can't live like that. This definitely was unfortunately a life ender, but they gave her such a loving home. And then they decided, because you know they wanted to help give another little hamster a home, they were the ones that adopted Scarlet recently. So Scarlet is now with them, and I'm so happy and can't wait for updates to share with you guys in the future about them. But thank you so much for this update. But before we go, I do want to do some name shout outs and name drops of animals you're probably going to see in the future. Sorry if I leave out any. There's just been so many animals that we've talked about today. So there is Spitfire, who was never really introduced properly except for the aggressive video about her story and what happened, where she came from. Smokey, my goodness, I am so sorry, Smokey, Mr. Fluffy Butt. We will introduce him eventually, but he was adopted. Paprika and Asuna, definitely going to be talking about them because their stories are quite sad. Yona, oh my god, yes, we are going to be talking about Yona. There's a lot to talk about in Yona's story, but she will be talked about. There is Mocha, which we currently have, Echo, which we currently have. There is McFlurry, who's been adopted, Dolly, who's been adopted. I forgot to let you guys know, oh yeah. ExFoster Updates, Ash has been adopted. Yeah, so Ash is adopted, and we got updates, and it's a slow working progress. Somebody is being patient with Ash and training Ash to want to come out and interact. So that's amazing. I'm so glad I ended up adopting Ash to somebody with patience that wanted to work with him and his issues about wanting to stay in his burrow all the time and not wanting to socialize. But yes, Ash was adopted. We're so happy. I totally forgot I actually introduced him on the channel, so I did, whoosh, it went right over my head. And then we got Huey, Dewey, and Louie, who all have been since adopted, and these boys were quite fun. I got them back in March doing a joint rescue. And then Tofu, which I actually do have Tofu, but Tofu is kind of a very long and very serious story. So eventually I'll talk to you more about Tofu as well. So thanks guys for watching today. Sorry it was a long updated awaited video, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about your favorite hamsters and where they've been and what to expect and what's going on. And if anybody wants to learn more about their situations, always check out Instagram. Like the video if you enjoyed. Please leave a comment down below with anything relevant to the video today, and subscribe if you're new here and would like to become a part of the Munchkin family. So thanks everybody, and see you next time. Hopefully not in a year.